Stop by after work again. Same street, same light above the door. The coffee machine was making that sound it always makes around this time. I grabbed the same drink, the same snack, the same things I never think about. Then I looked up for half a second like I always do, but it wasn't you. No reason to notice, no reason to care. You were just part of the room, like the shelves, like the music, like the clock on the wall. You used to say have a good night every time I left, nothing more than that. Now somebody else says it in the same place with the same smile, but it doesn't sound the same. I guess some things become the usual before you realize they matter. A different name tag, a different voice standing behind the register. Everything else looked exactly the same. The magazines, the freezer doors, the bell above the entrance. I almost asked what happened, then I didn't. It felt strange to explain why I wanted to know. We never talked about anything real, never exchanged names, never crossed that line. Still, I noticed when you disappeared. You used to say have a good night every time I left, nothing more than that. Now somebody else says it in the same place with the same smile, but it doesn't sound the same. I guess some things become the usual before you realize they matter. Maybe you found another job, maybe you moved away, maybe nothing happened at all. Maybe this is just how life works. People show up long enough to belong, and one day they're gone, and nobody announces it. The receipt curled up inside my jacket pocket, a date and time from some random Tuesday. Funny how I remember that more than things that were supposed to be important. The door rang again, somebody walked in, somebody walked out. The night kept moving like it always does. You used to say have a good night every time I left, nothing more than that. Maybe that's the reason I still think about it now. Not because we were close, not because we were friends, just because for a while you were part of the picture, part of the route, part of the usual. Same street, same light, same store, same time, just not quite the same. I was cleaning out my wallet, had a red light after work. Old cards, old notes, things I forgot were there. A grocery receipt folded twice, tucked behind a photo I don't even look at anymore. The date was faded, the ink was almost gone. I couldn't read most of it, but I remembered the day. Not because it was important, not because anything changed, just because somehow it stayed. I threw away her receipt today, a small piece of paper that followed me for years. I don't know why I kept it, I don't know why I know when it hit the bottom of the trash, something felt a little different, like a door closing quietly without a sound. I remember it was raining, not much, just enough to make everyone walk faster. I bought a drink and something to eat, then sat by the window for a while. Nothing special happened, nobody said anything memorable, nobody changed my life. It was just another afternoon, that's probably why I liked it. No photos, no messages, no reason to save the proof. Still, there it was, all these years later. I threw away a receipt today, a small piece of paper that followed me for years. I don't know why I kept it, I don't know why I noticed, but when it hit the bottom of the trash, something felt a little different, like a chapter ending without asking permission. Maybe I wasn't keeping the receipt, maybe I was keeping the version of me who folded it and slipped it in my wallet without thinking. Maybe that's harder to replace than paper. The wallet feels lighter now, only by a gram or two, but I noticed the empty space on the drive home. Funny how some things take up almost no room until they're gone, and suddenly you know exactly where they used to be. I threw away a receipt today, nothing valuable, nothing rare, nothing worth saving. At least that's what I told myself. But all evening I've been thinking about it, the faded numbers, the folded corners, the day it came from, and how ordinary it all was. Maybe that's the reason I kept it. The trash gets taken out tomorrow, by then it'll be gone for good. Just paper, just a receipt, that's all, I think. I found an old notebook today at the bottom of a cardboard box, behind some books I never read again. Most of the pages were empty, a few were torn. Then I found a note, written in my own handwriting from 10 years ago. It said, bring the blue folder, finish science homework, don't forget Friday, that's all. Nothing important, at least not anymore. But suddenly I could see the classroom, the desk by the window, the backpack on the floor, like it never left. I found a note today, 10 years late, a few small words on an old piece of paper. Funny how something so ordinary can bring back a whole afternoon. The walk home, the sound of traffic, the things I thought would matter forever. I found a note today, and somehow it found me too. The ink had faded near the corners, the paper smelled old, like a closet nobody opens. I tried to remember who I sat next to, what songs I listened to, what I worried about back then. Some things came back, some didn't. That's how memory works, I guess. The note wasn't special, the day probably wasn't either. but for a moment I was there again. I found a note today, 10 years late, a few small words on an old piece of paper. Funny how something so ordinary can bring back a whole afternoon. The vending machine, the after-school sky, the conversations I can't repeat anymore. I found a note today, and somehow it found me too. I used to think I'd remember everything, the important days, the important people, the important plans. But that's not what stayed. What stayed was a reminder about a blue folder written in a hurry on a random afternoon. I put the notebook back where I found it, but not before reading the note one more time. Not because I meant anything, not because I needed it, just because for a few minutes it felt like meeting someone I haven't seen in a very long time. I found a note today, 10 years late, a few small words on an old piece of paper. Nothing dramatic, nothing profound, nothing worth keeping, maybe, except for the way it opened a door I forgot was there. I found a note today, and all afternoon I kept thinking about the person who wrote it. Same handwriting, different life, 10 years later, still mine.